Hello there, what is going on everyone? Today we are asking the question, could Star Wars Armada make a revival under the new Fantasy Flight Games banner with their Vault series? Now this is sort of a follow-up to a couple of videos I've been talking about with the recent announcement of the FFG Vault series, which is a way for them to bring old games back through crowdfunding on GameFound. I'm going to just elaborate, give you guys a little bit of the backstory of what brought me here. I've already made a video about this talking about X-Wing. We're going to be talking about Armada, what sets Armada apart from this particular initiative, and why it may be more likely that Armada could come back. And that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. We are also going to be doing a giveaway for the 12 Days of Life Day at the end of this video. If you're not familiar with that, all month long, I am 12 times I'm giving away prizes to subscribers who comment. If you want to have a chance to enter to win, you just have to be a subscriber and you have to leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. It's as simple as that. I'll have a winner at the end of this video, and anything that goes unclaimed within 30 days rolls over into Patreon. So patrons, you guys have extra opportunities to win stuff. So again, check all the links out in the description below. We'd love to have you stick around. There's also links to discount things. If you want to head over to Battle Foam, you can save 15% by using code Crabbok VIP. A lot of other cool stuff down in there. Social media, our Discord, and Patreon links if you're interested in signing up and supporting the channel, getting your name in the credits and all that cool stuff. All that being said, let's talk about the FFG Vault series. So recently, we had PAX Unplugged, and Fantasy Flight had a lot of announcements to make. One of those was the Vault series. This is they're stepping their foot into the Kickstarter realm, well, the crowdfunding realm. Not necessarily through Kickstarter, but through GameFound, which is more of a crowdfunding platform that is specifically tailored for tabletop gaming. Now, this is kind of in response to CMON selling off games like Zombicide and Cthulhu Death May Die to Asmodee. Asmodee has then restructured those and placed those directly under Fantasy Flight Games. That was also part of this announcement. Cthulhu Death May Die is going to be their first crowdfunding initiative over on GameFound, and they're going to be kind of bringing the game back and giving everybody a chance to get into that. And then they also talked about Zombicide having some new things coming forward for that. There's again a lot of news all about that, which then led to, oh, and by the way, we're going to be doing old FFG games that are going to be coming back through the Vault series coming in 2026. So this is FFG's way of kind of taking old games that are out of print and bringing them back. Hence why I've talked about X-Wing and why I'm now talking about Armada. But Armada is not a board game. Armada is a miniatures game. And I recognize that. I know somebody's going to be like, wait a second, Crab, this is not a board game. This is a miniatures game. What are you talking about? And I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I don't know why I'm doing the voices, but I do the voices around the holidays sometimes. It's crazy. So it all depends on how successful this goes. Now, the FFG didn't say which games in particular they were bringing back. A lot of people jumped on, hey, what about StarCraft, the board game? What about Battlestar Galactica? What about, some of the Warhammer games that they've done? Well, all those are licensed games that they do not currently have the license for. So they're probably not coming back for those games. They are what's more likely that, now they didn't say this specifically, but what's more likely is they're going to be bringing back games that they either are in-house IPs or games that they still have the license to. Games that they still have the license to would be licenses like Lord of the Rings or possibly Marvel or even Star Wars potentially. Other games might be possibly Cthulhu-based games, maybe even some of the stuff that, well, what's more likely, I should say, is some of the stuff that is in-house. Things from the world of Terranoth, like Runebound, or older versions of Descent, or maybe Fury of Dracula, things like that, I think are the most likely things that we're going to see come back in the Vault series for its initial wave. However, if successful with Vault series, now again, if they start launching games and nobody backs them and nobody wants the old games, well, then it's just not going to work. I don't think it'll go a whole lot farther than that. It's largely going to depend on the community and how we react to it. And so I think if this is something that you do want, I think it's a good idea to kind of make your voices heard. Say, hey, this is what we would love to see. Because I feel like launching games through GameFound is a much lower risk than just having an entire print run made of a game and then having to rely on warehouse space and distributors and stores to order it and stock store shelves, especially on older games that they're going to, some store owners may say, well, this game failed once already. How do I know it won't fail again, right? And fail, I know, is a relative term. Fail isn't necessarily, I think both X-Wing and Armada were, massively successful and were consistently selling out every time they came in stock. So I would never say that those games failed, but I think a store owner might see it that way. That's why I use that term. I mean, I know somebody's going to jump down my throat or like, what did you say Armada failed? No. I would never say that. But I think store owners might view it that way because they're probably looking at, well, I had this stuff and then it went away, right? So it might seem like that. Now, again, low risk if it's going through crowdfunding. I think if board games are successful with Fantasy Flight, they may look at doing games like Star Wars Armada for a number of reasons, and I'll specify why this is different than X-Wing. For one, X-Wing had 3 different editions where Armada has only 1. So I think it's tough when you look at X-Wing and say, okay, well, we want to bring this back. And the Vault series has kind of basically been like classic games that are out of print. So you'd have to decide, well, what version do we go with? Do we go all the way back to first edition to the classic, or do we bring it back the version that was sort of ended under Atomic Mass Games? That was its current version. Do we bring it back in that 2.5 edition or whatever? Or do we go in the middle and go back to second edition? You've got people that play all 3 versions, second edition and then the AMG version are the two that are probably the most prominent right now. But it would be tricky to figure out exactly which version to bring back. I don't think there's any question when it comes to Armada because there is only 1 edition of the game. There's only 1 version of Star Wars Armada. They never made a second official edition. They did come out with a 1.5, which was just a rule set tweak that had a couple of minor changes. I think it was basically like 3 new rule clarifications and adjustments. Evades got changed a little bit, and then when the Clone Wars came out, there were some new things coming out. So that brings me to my second point. In the case of Star Wars Armada, they had just begun to launch into a whole new era of the game. They were just launching the Clone Wars when the game was changed and moved from FFG over to AMG for corporate restructuring purposes and to make the entire company appear more profitable so that they could have a better sale. Now that that's all said and done, there's really no reason why it couldn't go back to FFG, especially when you look at their initial reasoning was that they wanted all the miniatures under a miniature studio. However, if you look at what FFG's got on its plate right now, it really looks like they're doing an awful lot in the world of miniatures, considering they have the CMON titles, which you know what CMON stands for? Cool Mini or Not, right? It's a miniatures. CMON was a miniatures company. That's why Zombicide has 10,000 miniatures in every box, right? It's a miniatures game that's basically a board game. So I think they're classified as a board game, but anybody who's had to paint their zombies from Zombicide is like, whew, there's more miniatures in that than you have on in Legion or any other game. So. Especially if you back those Kickstarters and you get like all the optional expansions and stuff. I think there's literally 10,000 different models or something like that. Well, maybe not 10,000, but there's a lot of different sculpts in Zombicide. It's a very, very miniatures heavy game. And so it's not accurate to say that FFG doesn't do miniatures anymore. Now, granted, FFG's had a lot of success with card games because they're board and card games primarily, right? And Star Wars Unlimited has been doing very well, and they're very proud of that, and they should be. But they're not putting all their eggs in that one basket. They're also doing board games as well. And in the case of Cthulhu Death May Die, which is also another miniatures heavy game, and in Zombicide, definitely games that involve miniatures. We just saw Twilight Imperium get a new expansion, also another miniatures heavy game. Lots of miniatures in Twilight Imperium. Again, nothing says that FFG can't do miniatures. However, when it comes to pre-painted miniatures, like with Star Wars Armada, it's a little bit of a different story that raises the cost of doing it. And again, that's why GameFound is kind of a relatively risk-free way to do it, because again, getting these things mass-produced and also mass pre-painted and all of that could be risky. Or maybe you decide to go with a revival where things aren't pre-painted, and maybe it's a little bit more like how Twilight Imperium ships come, where they're colored for their faction, but not necessarily painted. That might be something that they might consider doing also. And again, it would be lower risk if you're going to launch it on GameFound and see if people buy into it. I don't think they'll go with that, though. I think if they were going to redo Armada, I think you would still have the pre-painted ships. Even if the cost were to increase, I think that it would totally be a viable thing to try on GameFound. Because again, if not enough people sign up for it and not enough people pledge, then you don't make it. But if they do, then you do. And if they go crazy and want to, buy, 12 Venators or whatever, then you get this. Basically, exactly. It's a glorified pre-order system, and it works very, very well. So those are all some reasons why. Clone Wars barely got started. There's a lot more opportunities for Clone Wars. This game has all kinds of traits that are built into ships now that aren't even used. There's a lot of archetypes that don't exist within these two factions yet. There's a lot of roles. There's more commanders that are needed. There's more ships that are needed. And there's a lot of art assets that were already created. There's a lot of ships that are prime from the Clone Wars that hadn't made it into the game yet. And so I guess it wouldn't even be hard. You wouldn't even have to dig deep to find out what to make next. Clearly, they had a couple more years of planned content just for the Star Wars Armada Clone Wars. Let alone potentially going into other realms or other eras or Old Republic or sequel trilogy or whatever they wanted to do after this. There was definitely a lot of content left for them to do, a lot of recognizable content. The fact that we don't have a Lucre Hulk or a Republic Architans is kind of testament that, yes, of course, Fantasy Flight had plans to do all of this extra stuff. We even see other things like in the art. There's Architans, in the background of so many space battle shots. There was huge close-ups of the ETA 2 on the rule book and the Clone Wars boxes. So clearly they had more things planned. There were more squadron options. There were more ship options. Lots of different things. Could have even done the stealth ship with cloaking. Could have done tridents, and there's plenty more. There's actually quite a few, especially in the Separatist side. Lots of like sphere ships and battle spheres, and a lot of cool stuff that they could have done. And this would be a great opportunity for them to do that with very low risk. You don't have to worry about them, retailers ordering them and all of that other stuff. So I think it would be very likely that this would be a huge success, especially if you look at, even if the prices went up, what are people paying on the aftermarket right now? What are people paying on eBay for sealed Armada product? They're like 5 times their original price, in some cases 10 times their original price. I saw a starter for like $500 the other day. Just ridiculous stuff, right? I think when you factor that in versus the cost of, if you're going to do, utilize Etsy or 3D printing and stuff, the cost of getting in to the game, you end up having to, templates, rulers, bases, stands, ships, and then you still have to paint it yourself. Oh, and ship tokens, and then other tokens, and all of these things really add up, and they kind of increase the cost to entry now is much higher than it ever used to be. And that's I think that's a good justification for, hey, in the real world, to make Armada to the same standard it was before, it's going to cost significantly more. And I think that was one of the reasons why Armada and X-Wing both didn't get continued, because of the fact that they would have had to have increased the cost so much more that they thought that, well, it's too risky, because if a ship pack has to cost $100 now or something like that, versus where it used to be 30 or 50 or whatever, they can only increase the prices so much and still have the same level of comfort that they're going to sell very, very well. I would argue that if the prices went up more than they did, but the game stayed in print, that would have been preferable to what ended up happening. So this is an opportunity to try out those higher prices to see if this could make the game sustainable, and also give them an opportunity to slow roll the content and keep it coming. They can do a new campaign every year or every 2 years. They could even say, look, we're only going to run this campaign once every 2 years, so back yourself with 2 years worth of stuff, and then we'll see you in 2028 or whatever. It'd be a really easy way to do that. And then they could even do points adjustments and stuff like that in the meantime, for the off-year stuff while fulfillment and all these things are coming out. There's a lot of really interesting ways that they could do it. I'd love to see them actually kick it off, but I don't think it will happen soon. I think if they do this, again, they're going to have to wait until 2026 to see how the first couple of Vault projects work. Some older board games coming back into print. If those are very successful and there's a high demand for Star Wars Armada, then I think it might be likely. But a big part of it depends on whether Lucasfilm, as the license holder, as the IP, decides that, you know, maybe Lucasfilm says we don't want our games going on a crowdfunding campaign. Maybe they don't like the optics of that. That could be a very, you know, that could be a showstopper. And that's really, I think that's ultimately where it belongs. The fact that I've seen other companies, other licenses, especially Disney licenses like Marvel, get games on crowdfunding, but I have not ever seen a Star Wars licensed game go onto Kickstarter or GameFound, makes me think that perhaps Lucasfilm doesn't like the idea of a Star Wars game going into crowdfunding, or at least they haven't in the past. That doesn't mean it couldn't in the future. And even if that doesn't happen, what if they decided, okay, we'll bring back Star Wars, or we'll bring back Armada, but maybe we'll do Twilight Imperium Armada. You know, there's a lot of stuff, and that's, you know, now I'm going off topic, but that is also something that could happen. Let me know in the comments what you would think about something like that, or what you think the likelihood of Armada actually coming back through FFG would actually be. With that, we are going to announce the latest Life Day giveaway winner, and today's prize is going to be a Nebulon B. This one is a full-size alternate art card. This one's old too. This is one of the earliest Star Wars Armada promos. Also, really good one too. Love that look. It's the full-size Rebel Nebulon B. Today's winner is going to be CNW 1995. Charlie November Whiskey 1995. Congratulations. Go ahead and shoot me an email at mailcrabbok@gmail.com. and we will get you squared away. Don't forget to tell me what you've won and tell me your shipping address in that email, mailcrabbok@gmail.com. And yeah, I'll get you squared away. If you do not claim that, anything that goes unclaimed after 30 days rolls over into Patreon giveaways. So patrons get extra opportunities for all that stuff. Be sure to click the links in the description below. Check out all that stuff for more information and let me know your thoughts. You can also jump into Discord and keep the discussion going there. That's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you all so much. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing and help make this whole channel possible. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all. And always wash your socks.